Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Oh, I love that so much. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is Sunday, August 31st of 2025, and I am delighted to be serving as your minister of this beloved community. I am the Reverend Dr. Kate R. Walker. I use the she, her pronouns. And I am a middle-aged, light-skinned female with glasses and dirty brown, sometimes blonde hair, curly. And I'm wearing a yellow Side of Love stole today on a white blouse. And, beloved, we are casting to YouTube today. I am delighted live. So for all of you who are out there, welcome for being here with us this morning. And yes, I'm looking at one of our new cameras up there. We have cameras here, there, and in the back. And yes, our tech team is mastering our brand new technology. For those who are visitors, you may not be aware, this is our first experience of our screens. They went in last week and the live cameras. And also, you may notice something else. Well, oh, the scaffolding. No, something more important. What have I been going on about for the last 2 years? Light bulbs. All our new LED light bulbs are now installed. And so we're just delighted that we can see each other. And that is just all thanks to all of you as our members and friends who have been supporting our capital campaign. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your generosity. And it's so much easier now to say you are welcome here because I can see you. I can see you. You are welcome here. If you are a brand new visitor here today, never been here before or online on YouTube, a special welcome that you took the time and the effort to come explore and discover, answer, and ask questions. You are particularly welcome. We would love to meet you and have conversation. There is a welcome desk here, if you missed it, in this side of the building in the garden lobby. And you can also just explore our website, please. Sign up for our newsletter, and you can find a MailChimp opt-in form at the bottom of our main webpage. Introduce yourselves. Say hello to each other. We'd love to know what you're looking for. But I will tell you that we are Unitarian Universalists. We're a multi-faith religion with many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. And however you arrived, you are loved. You are welcome here, and we are delighted to be celebrating on this day together. We have a very active community, my beloved, and I also am going to start featuring some activist opportunities out in the larger world of social justice, resistance, and resilience. So I highlight, yes, this is Labor Day weekend. Tomorrow is one of our country's largest Labor Day parades here in Pittsburgh, and that is being supported, of course, by our local unions. But there's also some resistance efforts going on called Workers Over Billionaires, May Day Strong, and No Kings protests all over Pittsburgh. So a lot of those protests start at 8 a.m. Some are over our highways, on bridges. They're all over the Pittsburgh area. So please Google one that is close to you. Show up in your proud resistance, whatever that looks like, with signs, and mobilize your neighbors and your friends. Next Sunday is our annual In-Gathering. Right here, it's a multi-generational service. We invite you to show up ready to sing, and we are going to be celebrating our theme of the month, which is in our interconnected web of existence. And we invite you to bring a sample of water from your home, from your garden, from your travel, some small sample, and we will gather that water which we then use to celebrate, to bless, and to just be who we are in a world that is constantly changing, just like the image of water. After that service, we have our annual In-Gathering picnic hosted by the Board of Trustees, and I'm sure they would welcome your help, but it is a potluck, and hopefully you've gotten an email with what to bring. Look in the newsletter, open the newsletter, and find out what you should be bringing. And September 14th, there is going to be a training for safety and update in our policies and keeping everybody safe. That'll be here in the sanctuary, led by myself and Chris McCarrick from the safety team. We're an active community. I invite you to take a deep breath, arrive in body and spirit, be present with one another in this time and place. Know that we are connected to each other here and across Pittsburgh and across this country with Unitarian Universalists, but also with those who are committed to the liberal religious community, committed to liberal theology, which is what we will be exploring today. Return to our chalice lighting, the symbol of our faith. As Unitarian Universalists, Stephanie, I invite you to come forward and light the chalice. I offer these chalice lighting words from Reverend Theodore Parker, 19th century Unitarian minister, who wrote, "Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love, its profession of faith, divine, living." We will be singing this as well later in the service. Welcome, welcome to you all. I invite you to rise as you're able in body and spirit for 119, once to every soul and nation.
Morning. Again, I'm Stephanie Pulowski, commissioned lay minister with this church. I'm wearing an animal printed shirt with a yellow sweater. And I got so excited about the protests tomorrow, that's what I was looking up, when I did not stand up to light the chalice. So if anyone wants details, I know them now. If you could join me in reading the collective reading printed in your order of service. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We covenant to practice interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of existence. To practice pluralism, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. To practice justice, we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. To practice transformation, we adapt to the changing world. To practice generosity, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. To practice equity, we declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love.
Good morning again. I'm Erica Shadowsong, Lifespan Religious Education Director, and I've got a wonderful story for you today that is a new story to me. It comes from the Miao people of China, and it is about an extraordinary woman named Sister Lace. Sister Lace was a weaver. She was not just an ordinary weaver. She weaved lace and embroidery, but everything that she made seemed alive. When she wove the flowers and trees and animals, they seemed like they breathed. When she wove dragons, it seemed like they were going to fly off of the tapestries. And when she wove birds and had the sunlight fall on them in her weaving, they looked like they were going to sing. And it was just magical. So she was, of course, her fame traveled around the country until a greedy, powerful emperor learned of these extraordinary tapestries. Now, this emperor loved beautiful things, but he believed that all beautiful things should belong to him, should be brought to him and live in his place and be for him. So he sent his soldiers to come and get Sister Lace. They dragged her to his palace and they threw her in a golden cage. And he ordered her, he said, "Weave me a garden that never fades. Weave me a phoenix that breathes fire. Weave me a forest with trees that are made of silver." And she did everything he asked. She tried as best as she could. But she was miserable because in her heart she knew something that he didn't. See, all of her weaving came from her observation of the world around her. She knew the secrets of the wind. She knew the power of the mountains. She knew the great expanse of the sky and the wonder that it brought to her. And after a little while, an idea came to her. And in her latest tapestry, she began to weave a dragon, but not the usual dragon. This dragon was made of thinnest thread, so thin you couldn't even see it, it was invisible. She wove this invisible dragon, and as she wove this lace dragon, she poured into it all of her love and all of her longing for freedom and for her people, and all that she knew of the world around her and how it was interdependent. And eventually the emperor came to see her latest piece, and he knew there was something different about it. He looked and he saw, "I think that's a dragon." And at that moment, the lace dragon shifted and moved, lifted out of her tapestry. It was so big, it broke apart the golden cage. And she grabbed onto the dragon and flew off. And it took her back to her people and her land. And the emperor was so angry, but there was nothing he could do. His soldiers knew how to use bows and swords, but they didn't know how to catch a dragon of lace that flew on the wind. Sister Lace understood something that he couldn't. She understood how interconnected everything was. And she was able to breathe that life into her work, into her art. So as you listen to the rest of the service today or go to your classes, I invite you to be thinking about how our knowledge, inner and outer, can lead us to freedom. Thank you. Children, we're going to go on to our last summer class before we begin the major church year. So, thank you.
Every month, we share our generosity with a designated organization that shares our values. This month, it is UU Justice PA. All donations are shared 50-50 with this organization unless otherwise designated. Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please also check the end of your order of service for more instructions. The offering will now be gratefully received to support the work, the wonder, and the witness of our religious community.
What a beautiful piece, Lee. Wow. It ties in better to my sermon than you know. My beloved, we have so many joys as well as deep sorrows and grief in our hearts. On any given day, we carry both with as much grace as we can muster. And I honor this in each of you and invite you to share with your family and your friends, your pew community. It is so much easier when we find ourselves connected in the most intimate and precious moments of our lives. I invite you to put your hearts together, particularly for the families and friends of the children in Minneapolis who are in that church in that awful shooting. And 2 children have died and lost their lives. Let our hearts and our resistance into ensuring that guns are safely kept in homes behind locked doors. Beloved, I invite you to a few moments of silence and your meditation or your prayer as we come together in community. Blessed Spirit of love, help ease our pain and our fears. Help us find our strength, our courage, our voice in a world that is often overwhelming. Help us feel connected, not isolated and alone. Blessed Spirit of life, help us connect to one another. Help remind us of all that we have in our bodies and when we are most of all feeling grounded, when we can reach deep into the earth and up into the sky and feel all that is sacred and worth saving. Spirit of love and life and justice, we ask today, in particular, prayers of healing for the families in the Minneapolis shooting, yet another travesty that breaks our hearts. May our community put more resources into mental health to help those who are crying out in their darkness and in their abyss. Let them see a hand reaching in to pull them out. Spirit of life, hold us now in your embrace. May the Spirit of justice guide us in these days of chaos and confusion. Let us remember that we are not alone in our journey. Blessed be, and amen. I invite you to stay seated for 10:58, Be Ours a Religion.
Our reading this morning is by the Reverend A. Powell Davies. Is this your religion? We are the consummation of thousands of years of religious history. We are thousands of years that have stripped off superstition and battled with tyranny. Thousands of years that struggled to take fear out of religion, to take it right out of human life. Thousands of years that have marched, sometimes joyfully, sometimes in agony, toward spiritual emancipation. We are indeed the consummation of something. Yet in this world of blood and sorrow, it is scarcely important, hardly worth mentioning, unless, in addition, we are the beginning of something, unless our religion is new, the religion that has always been new in every prophet who died rather than forsake it, the religion that has been buried over and over again in creeds and rituals and sacred sepulchres, and yet has always come to life, the religion that today is new all over the earth, stammering itself into utterance in every language known to humankind. The religion that says freedom, freedom from ignorance and false belief, freedom from spurious claims and bitter prejudices, freedom to seek the truth, both old and new, and freedom to follow it, freedom from the hates and greeds that divide humankind and spill the blood of every generation, freedom for honest thought, freedom for equal justice, freedom to seek the true, the good, and the beautiful, with minds unimpaired by cramping dogmas and spirits uncrippled by abject dependence. The religion that says humankind is not divided except by ignorance and prejudice and hate. The religion that sees humankind as naturally one and waiting to be spiritually united. The religion that proclaims an end to all exclusions and declares a brother and sisterhood unbounded. The religion that knows that we shall never find the fullness of the wonder and the glory of life until we are ready to share it. That we shall never have hearts big enough for the love of God until we have made them big enough for the worldwide love of one another. As you have listened to me, have you thought perchance that this is your religion? If you have, do not congratulate yourself. Stop long enough to recollect the miseries of the world you live in, the fearful cruelties, the enmities, the hate, the bitter prejudices, the need of such a world for such a faith. And if you still can say that this of which I have spoken is your religion, then ask yourself this question: what are you doing with it?
In 2011, August 23rd, I was sitting in my office of my church in Northern Virginia. I was meeting with my director of religious education, and as we were talking about the coming year, everything began to shake. Everything. My DRE looked at me and said, "Is this an earthquake?" Her eyes large with terror, and it being my third, said confidently, "Yes." She booked for the exit. I, an experienced earthquake veteran, threw my body over my two dogs who were lying on their bed wondering what was going on. They were surrounded by books and bookshelves and things unanchored. Everyone has a panic reaction to a threat. So no judgment for those who go immediately to lizard brain and go in flight response upon my DRE. I was able to laugh at her later, and she still loved me. But I also later wondered, during that light moment, if the earthquake was perhaps caused by the founding fathers who were rolling over in all of their graves due to the political manipulations that was happening in 2011. Even back then, the Christian nationalism were well along on their plan to undermine our government and democracy, a plan that few knew about and even fewer took seriously. Today, the Christian nationalists have unprecedented power and access. They have control about so many parts of our government, and their goal for some is to bring about Armageddon, others the annihilation of most of our country's freedoms and our liberties. It being Labor Day, let me also highlight the horrendous attacks on the labor unions, such as attempts to dismantle collective bargaining rights, health and safety precautions, loss of wages, loss of jobs due to the imminent massive tidal wave of AI, and blatant racism and sexism. Please see the New York Times headline today. While we're at it, let's name the massive power shift of corporate political influence and power that happened in June, most recently, the insertion of 4 corporate tech executives who were commissioned as senior Army officers, lieutenant colonels, providing access to huge amounts of secure data, and combines private for-profit tech companies with the military industry, that is really unprecedented in U.S. history. One of those companies is Palantir, Peter Thiel's company, who bought and paid for our current vice president. Breathe. Side note, liberals generally are noted as not liking conspiracies. We don't even want to recognize them or be associated with them, but it's really hard not to see the patterns if we don't look for them. But now, as always, it's a good time to ask, why is the liberal church important? Currently, what feels like a relentless earthquakes and some hurricanes and tornadoes thrown in, that reminder of why are we here in these pews as we face this enormous existential crisis. Last week, I challenged 20th century liberal theology as being too optimistic. It was built upon the flawed foundation of making people more comfortable in their pews, which I think is a high bar considering the low comfort of those pews. And yet, Gary Dorian, who was a well-liked and respected Episcopalian priest and a liberal theologian, has a defense of 20th century theology that I offer you. Quote, Dorian said, for all the critical pounding that liberal theology, took in the 20th century, often undeservedly, I believe that liberal theology has been and remains the most creative and influential tradition of theological reflection since the Reformation, end quote. The most creative and influential tradition. Why would Gary Dorian offer such an enticing and affirming statement? So today I'm going to offer you 4 historical stories in order of appearance, each demonstrating fundamentally important thread running through the liberal religion and liberal theology, in particular Unitarians, Universalists. You may remember last week I quoted the Reverend Theodore Parker, a Unitarian minister of the 19th century. He was renowned for that famous, quote, arc of the moral universe is long but bends toward justice, which was loved by Martin Luther King and President Obama, and often given credit for it rather than Theodore Parker. Long before Parker's quote went viral, 100 years after his death, Parker himself challenged the 19th century Unitarian clergy, particularly the Harvard elite, for being too, elite. The response of this snubbed Unitarian clergy is that they held what is essentially a heresy trial. It was unofficial, but it had some very serious ramifications. The controversy, you may have heard about it at some point, is called the transient and the permanent. So here's the background of what happened. Theodore Parker was born in 1810. He died in 1860. He was one of 11 children, and he grew up on a farm, highly intelligent, but he had no money for school. His mother died when he was just 13. He was an excellent student, despite minimal schooling as a child. But he had a social network and was introduced to the right people at Harvard Divinity and received a scholarship to become a Unitarian minister. He went on to serve the West Roxbury Church, just outside Boston. Parker was known for his powerful preaching. He was respected by his colleagues, but also known for his sharp tongue. But in 1841, he was invited to preach at the ordination of someone he barely knew. No one was expecting anything unusual or controversial that day. And in his sermon, Parker insisted that human beings are by nature religious, nevertheless rejected the miracles of the Bible. He stated the existence within the human being to have access through our intuition directly to connect with God. There was no need of an intermediary like clergy. We do this through our conscience and by a belief in the miracles not by the sanctity of Christ. We do not need these things. And here's the crux. Really, Jesus, he said, is mostly human. Well, put yourself in a 19th century theological firestorm. The American Unitarian Association had been created in 1825. Yes, we celebrated our 200th anniversary last May. And Parker that day drew a line in the sand. Many of the more conservative clergy of Boston were present that day, and they went home and they thought about what they heard. They then published their challenge back to Parker and the liberal Unitarian clergy with the goal of splitting the rebels. And it worked. The liberal elite Boston Association of Ministers were horrified that Parker was dumb enough to declare heresies in such a public manner as an ordination. So in January of 1843, 2 years later, this has been going on, they met and they asked Parker if he would kindly leave the elite association. It was a subtle but clear invitation. Parker declined. He ended up in tears as he sat before his colleagues in their unofficial heresy trial. The damage was done, even as he said, "No, I will not leave." Since Parker wouldn't leave the association, the other liberal clergy simply refused to exchange pulpits with him, which is basically the way you form ostracism and censor of each other in that day and age. That story is about the fundamental and creative influence of freedom. To believe and to know God directly was proclaimed by Parker, with all the consequences that came from challenging the cultural norms and traditions of that era. Today, 200 years plus later, with our long liberal religious history as Unitarian Universalists, Parker is celebrated as a hero for acknowledgement and the advancement of liberal theology. Second story, Joseph Tuckerman. He was born in 1778 and died in 1840. He was born into money, he married into money, and he had good social circles. He's a friend of John Hancock, socially well connected. While not a brilliant student or a brilliant preacher, he had a huge influence on classism of that day and the cruelty of poverty. He attended Harvard, became a Unitarian minister, and he served Chelsea faithfully for 25 years, also outside Boston. He was surrounded by this change in America, and Boston was experiencing a huge influx of poor immigrants and farmers. Tuckerman began visiting the poor in their homes and crossing the class lines. He invited himself in. He began keeping track of their incredible poverty, and he created what was called the Benevolent Fraternity to minister to the poor. His challenge was to get the Unitarian wealthy elite to just notice and acknowledge and bear witness to the poor, to raise their spiritual consciousness and recognize they bore responsibility to help. The Boston liberal elite, they were not disposed to provide assistance to people whose poverty was generally attributed to the judgments of sin, squandering, and other vices. We were not always at our best. Again and again, though, Tuckerman helped the poor. And again, he went to the liberal religious people of the day, and he drove home his message that, quote, "There is no human being, however depraved, who is not totally depraved." He wrote, "No one from whom moral efforts are not to be made as long as God shall uphold him in being." Those are the 19th century words that everyone is worthy. Tuckerman was hired by the American Unitarian Association. He helped recognize the liberal principles of justice and equity and was grounded in Unitarians right then as being of a creative and influence through generosity. We see through the oppression of poverty, he said, can be a barrier to just living one's life. Tuckerman was, you may know, for those of you who are social workers, Tuckerman was one of the leading fathers of the American social workers, and his ministry continues today as what is called the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry in Boston. Third story, A. Powell Davies. We heard his reading from a few moments ago from Stephanie, and he wrote those words over 70 years ago. Yet they still work today in a painful way. Davies was born in 1902 in England, and he died in 1957. He immigrated from England to the U.S. as a United Methodist minister, and he found the Unitarians while he was in New England, and he was soon hired as the minister of the All Souls Church in Washington, D.C., one of our flagship churches, during a time of serious political earthquakes in the United States in the 1950s. Davies' ministry rose in national prominence in the U.S. through his liberal activism, advocating for the rights of African Americans and women and the ethical stands against the post-war nuclear proliferation, methods that were employed by the American government during the age of the McCarthyism. He was out there again and again in the newspapers and in the halls of Congress. He was also largely responsible for the growth of Unitarian Universalists in the district, Maryland, Virginia, entire region during that population explosion in the 1940s and 50s. Davies offered an expanding view of liberal religion in our time that we desperately needed, a powerful vision of freedom from government, persecution, and the clarity of the call of liberal religious voice. Davies helped plant 5 Unitarian churches. The people would gather in homes or in wherever they could, and his sermons were piped in on the phone line. And then those people would form a church, and then they formed more churches. And there are 3 generations of Unitarian Universalist churches in D.C. because of him, because he knew what to do with his religion. And he did it. Why is liberal religion important? 4th story. My father, Brooks, he was born in Gunnison, Colorado. He graduated his undergraduate from University of Colorado at Boulder, and then he attended Harvard Divinity to be a Christian minister. But while he was at Harvard, he was befriended by James Luther Adams, our most prominent, influential Unitarian Universalist theologian of the 20th century. Adams invited my parents for dinner over many nights with other students, and they also invited him to Red Sox games. I'll let that one go. And he engaged in deep conversations about religious freedom, American values, basic human rights, all grounded in a strong liberal theology. It didn't take long for my father to be converted to Unitarian faith. And Adams' work paid off, because he not only got my father, he got my stepmother, who is a retired UU minister, and me, 3 for 1. Adams influenced generations of liberal religious leaders who carried a fundamental understanding of religious freedom in the covenantal church. It was grounded in what we then called our basic principles and now call our Unitarian Universalist values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all focused in the center of love. This thread is long and powerful. All 4 of these stories of liberal religious leaders, they challenge the powers of their day based on enduring values. We are a small denomination, but we're influential in the field of liberal churches, never ceasing to challenge the powerful, to generously care for others with life-changing compassion, to pursue justice and equity so that all may be liberated from the horrors of oppression and exploitation. Beloved, we are experiencing earthquakes every day right now. With the advancement of fascism, authoritarianism, Christian nationalism, I look back at some of those leaders, Theodore Parker, Joseph Tuckerman, and A. Powell Davies, and James Luther Adams. They offered us examples of their courage and their times of earthquakes. These are 4 white men who had extensive privilege and power and used it. And we become part of this long line of thousands and thousands of people using their power and whatever privilege we have who speak up again and again. Over these past 200 years, it's important to note what Unitarians and Universalists and post-1961 Unitarian Universalists, when we merged, what we've been doing. We've been active in starting public schools, schools for the blind, the Sanitary Commission. We've been abolitionists working for civil rights, women's right to vote, same-sex marriages and rights, immigrant rights. We've been advocating for the health care and rights of transgender community and ensuring that the poor and immigrants have the necessities of just living. These are people like you and me, young and old, wealthy and poor, middle of the road and off the road. We're educated and uneducated people who are living on the margins of society, who are Black, brown, Asian, able-bodied and disabled, people of all shapes and sizes, who are pushing and defending and living into and out of the liberal religious message. This powerful belief, this mission, it means that we are bending the arc of the moral universe by our sheer will for the liberation for all. And in pursuit of that mission, we hold ourselves accountable to those who have been on this course for hundreds of years and for our children and grandchildren who are singing right now in our hearts, freedom. Fight for my freedom. We don't always get it right. We don't. But we learn, we adapt. We recognize that transformation is part of evolution, and we carry on with pride and humility. So in this world of chaos and threats, we are asking again, how are we responding? So I'm going to ask you, think about this. No guilt. If you are feeling comfortable, raise your hands. How many have sent letters and postcards? There you go. How many have made phone calls? Attended rallies? Held up a sign or put it out on your front yard? Visited a legislature? Public testimony? Letter to the editor? Few, good. Comforted someone. Comforted someone. Challenged someone. And I know you've been busy out there, and I want you to see that we are not alone. We are not alone. We are proclaiming our values and our call for hope, for healing with radical love. Again and again, loudly, courageously, boldly, unapologetically, never apologize for our faith. We are called to tell a different story than the Christian nationalists. We are here to be ones pushing for radical love rather than fear. We cannot cede the religious space to their narrative of oppression and exclusion. We are here to constantly draw the circle wider, and if need be, we'll break that circle wide open. There's a major earthquake going on, my beloved. When we're not in lizard brain, we are making a choice. Are we going for the exit? Or are we going to protect one another so that all may see the light of freedom? May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Take a deep breath, and I invite you to bellow out our last hymn. It's answering the call of love. It is sung to the tune of Standing on the Side of Love, which is number 1014 if you need the tune. But these are the words that were rewritten by its author, Jason Shelton. And these are words that he wrote to be radically inclusive so that no one is left out on this quest of journey for love. So, Answering the Call of Love, if you need the tune, 1014. The lyrics are in our program. I invite you to remain standing as you're able, as we bring our voices together and read, for extinguishing the chalice, the words are in our hearts as well as in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Beloved, go forth into this world with your love inspired, sparked, growing ever. This is how we answer the world right now. Believe in the strength and the power of that love because we are not alone. That's why it works, because we are not alone. Keep showing up. Keep writing those letters. Keep protesting. That's how we answer this world. Return again next week with your love and your water. Go forth. Return again.